Hey there, Dr. Anna Maria Helt here, herbalist and microbiologist. And if you are wondering what's going on with today's headline concerning hedgehogs and MRSA, look no further. So I'm going to skip my usual blathering about herbs and mushrooms to get into this microbial hedgehog intrigue. Here's a hedgehog. They are super cute. Here's Staph. Not super cute. This is pseudo-colored purple. This is an electron micrograph image of MRSA, methicillin-resistant Staph aureus. So Staphylococcus aureus. The name Staphylococcus is derived from the fact that they grow and look somewhat like grapes. If you hear jingling in the background, that's my dog, Phyllis, wandering around aimlessly. Anyway, MRSA, methicillin-resistant Staph aureus. So this is a gram-positive round bacterium, for those of you who care. And not only is this resistant to methicillin, it's resistant to virtually all of the standard B-lactam category of antibiotics that are used to fight bacterial infections. So, for instance, this is amoxicillin. You may be familiar with this one. This is a very commonly used antibiotic in people and in animals and is one of the many beta-lactam type antibiotics. Penicillin was actually the first one that was used by people, and it was discovered in mold. So MRSA is resistant to this antibiotic as well as many of the others. Now, a little bit of a warning here. If you're squeamish, you might want to not look for the next number of seconds. I'll tell you when it's safe, but I just want to show a couple of pictures of skin infection by MRSA. So here are some lesions on the skin that have progressed to being ulcerated. This is, both of these are MRSA, although a garden variety non-resistant staph infection would look similar. The difference is the MRSA infections are much harder to treat. And so a lot of people, meaning about 30% of the population, actually carry staph in the nose with no symptoms whatsoever. And, it just winds up not being an issue for them, but it becomes an issue when it's an issue. So it's safe to look now. I'm just showing the bacteria again. So it's not just skin infections that are the issue here. There can be internal infections from surgically implanted devices, shunts and ports as well, that again with drug resistance can be life-threatening, really difficult to treat. Also, if you've ever heard of toxic shock syndrome, which really made the headlines in the late 70s and early 80s and came from gargantuan tampons that were in use, that was also staph and a dangerous infection. Staph can get into the bloodstream and travel throughout the body and cause really, really bad problems. Now, the main point one that I'm making with this video is that MRSA was thought to originate from antibiotic usage in people and livestock. And so a lot of the antibiotic resistance that we're seeing now is generally thought to come from overusage. And that is true in most situations. That is what's going on. The bacteria are selected for resistance, meaning that the ones that are able to keep living and reproducing in the presence of whatever antibiotic is being used are the ones that propagate and spread that resistance. So the first human case of MRSA, by the way, was documented in 1960. So it's been known for several years now that wild hedgehogs can carry MRSA. So this is circling back to all the headlines you may be seeing today. So there's a Swedish study in 2017 that found a whopping 64% of the 55 wild hedgies they tested from around the country were positive for MRSA. So MRSA on the skin of hedgehogs. Actually, in this case, I think they looked in the nostril. And then there was a Danish study published in 2019 where a similar number, about 61% of the nearly 200 hedgies they tested were positive for MRSA. Now, this study actually looked at hedgehog rehabilitators. These are people that apparently take care of rescued hedgehogs to get them ready to go back out in the wild. The scientists thought, well, if there's transmission of the MRSA from the hedgehog to the people, this would be a good group of people to look into. Now, this paper did not see MRSA being picked up by the hedgehog rehabilitators. Regardless, the CDC in 2019, after seeing these studies, thought that it would be really good to warn folks who have pet hedgehogs not to kiss them. due to the presence of MRSA. So the plot thickened in 2021 with a Swedish paper finding that hedgehogs, at least a significant fraction of them, have a fungus on them capable of producing a beta-lactam antibiotic, namely penicillin G. So not only do hedgehogs, at least a significant fraction of them, have MRSA on them, methicillin-resistant staph, they also have a fungus able to make a beta-lactam antibiotic. Methicillin is a beta-lactam antibiotic. So the plot is really getting exciting here. And now I'm coming back to today's headlines talking about MRSA and hedgehogs. A Nature paper just came out this year that everybody is talking about, or at least everybody that gives a rat's or a hedgehog's ass about this story. Which brings me to the second point of this little video and one of the major points of this Nature paper. And the big deal is that MRSA emerged not necessarily from the human overusage of antibiotics, but emerged before people started actually using antibiotics. So the data suggests it's been around for at least 200 years before that first reported human case of MRSA in 1960. So again, well before the beta-lactams or any other antibiotics were being isolated and purified and used. And then the final point of this video, and another major point from this Nature paper, is that hedgehogs are to blame in a sense, because it's on them that staph was living and this fungus-making beta-lactam antibiotics were living together. It was the staph that was able to resist the effects of those antibiotics that was then propagated on hedgehogs and their progeny and their progeny and their progeny all the way down through today. And so this breaks the normal paradigm of human overusage causing the resistance, although that still is a very much real phenomenon, and points the finger at hedgehogs in this case. Who knew?